you know you can be profitable, but you just can't control your emotions. This is a very common phase for traders to get to. So you've probably been trading for a few years already. Maybe it's 2 or 3, maybe it's longer. But this phase is where most traders get stuck. And the bad news is most traders, 95%, never get out of this phase. For a very good reason, is that they don't understand why this is happening. It is confusing. How can you know what to do and just not do it because there's emotions involved? It is confusing, and if you're in this phase, don't worry. We're going to solve this for you. This is a great webinar to watch. Watch it to the end. This is the information you need. And it's information, but then you need to take action. You actually need to start doing work to solve this. And there's a few reasons why this is happening and why you can't figure it out. I'm going to go through the detailed what's actually going on in this webinar. But the information out there is telling you to do something else. And that one thing is actually making this problem worse. So if you've ever noticed that the more you try, the more effort you do, the longer you're trading, the worse this is getting. It's because you are making it worse, not because it's your fault. You're just being told the wrong things to do. Now, I did a webinar last week explaining exactly what that is, why it's making it worse. Go and watch it. If you're new here, I'm Marisa. I'm a full-time trader. I'm a trading mindset and psychology expert. I've been working on mindset, success mindset, psychology of trading, of how to overcome these issues to actually achieve what you want to achieve since 2009. So I discovered trading in 2008, and I've been learning and working on how to become a coach on these issues since 2009. It's a massive passion of mine. But even myself, I used it in other areas of my life very, very successfully. But I didn't understand that this was needed for trading, that trading relied on mindset and psychology. I also believed that it was about the charts, about learning more about the markets. It was all an intellectual exercise. And I had this information right in front of me in other aspects of my life, because what we're going to talk about today is common for anything you want to achieve. If you want to achieve anything, okay, we're working on trading now, but there's things that are going to stand in your way. And it's usually these kind of emotions and feelings that stop you from doing what you need to be doing. And there is a common theme, but in trading it's very specific because we're trying to just follow some rules. We know what to do. It becomes very clear to us what to do, but that inability to do it is so frustrating because it seems so simple. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And make sure that you show up every week, because this is all I teach: trading psychology and mindset. I am a full-time trader, but I don't teach my strategy, because without this, without your psychology and your mindset being the strongest, you can't trade any strategy. So I don't want to be like everybody else, teaching strategies knowing that you won't be able to trade them. But when you sort out this mindset and the psychology, you will be able to trade any strategy. This works for any strategy. The simpler, the better. But if you're someone that likes more complex strategies, that's great. We're all different, but that's why I'm very passionate about this topic. I talk about it all the time. And you do need to start showing up every week, because it's a big topic. It's complex. It can't be solved overnight. And I'm not going to tell you that it can. I'm not going to try and sell you the overnight get rich quick dream. It doesn't work like that. But I can tell you that if you put in the work, if you start today and you actually start focusing on this 90% of your effort with trading. So you move some of your effort on the charts into this. A lot of it, 80 to 90% should be spent on this, and you dedicate yourself to this. You can solve this in 3 to 6 months. It depends where you're at. Now, some people might take a bit longer. It depends what solutions you find. It depends how you go about it. But you will solve it. This is the answer. I can guarantee you that. Okay, so before we get started, let me just check everything's working, because this is a live webinar. I do this live every Wednesday, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. London time. So it's called the Trader's Journal, and show up. I'm here every week, or you can watch it on replays. So cool. This is all tickety-boo. Okay, so let's get started. Why can you know what to do and just not do it? Why can you know, you can see that you could be profitable so easily? It's right there, but you just can't control your emotions. Let's talk about this. What is going on is a biological response. So we have what's called a nervous system, and it keeps us safe. It keeps us alive, let's be honest. It's very powerful because the job of your nervous system is to keep you alive. It's a subconscious thing. You don't control it. It kicks in because it's there to keep you alive. Now, do not underestimate the survival instinct of a human. We have amazing survival instincts. If you think about it, our hearts beat, our lungs breathe, everything works without us having to think about it. And when any of that is compromised, is under threat, your body will kick in to protect you. And that's why people have done amazing feats, lifted cars off people, run marathon length distances to save themselves, have survived in crazy circumstances, lost in the desert, lost for days, lost shipwrecked. People survive under amazing circumstances. And if you held your breath, jumped into water to go and drown yourself, you would really struggle, because your survival instinct would kick in and would override your willpower to try and do that. Now, don't try and do that. That's really silly. But it's very hard to override this. And you can't underestimate the power of it. And that's where you need to start, is to just understand what is going on with you as a human. You're powerless to this. So the fight or flight response that I'm talking about is when your nervous system detects danger, and it's going to either fight or get you out of there. Because if you were living in a cave 3,000 years ago and there was a fire coming, you would need to run or kill the fire. Or a bear came, you need to kill the bear or run. And that survival instinct kicks in. It's an instinct. What happens when that instinct kicks in is that the blood rushes from your front brain, and that's the brain that we've developed as humans. It helps us to think. It's what makes us different from other species, is this front brain. And the blood rushes from there back to a little brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is your instinct. All the blood rushes there so that your fight or flight can kick in. So if you feel like you know your rules, but when you're in the moment of trading, you suddenly don't know what to do, it's because you've got no blood in the brain that needs the blood. Okay. When you're not in fight or flight, your body is actually in rest and digest. And that's in a resting state, and it allows all the blood to flow to your stomach and your front brain, and you can rest and digest whatever you've eaten, and that keeps your body ticking over. So these are the two systems that you have. And in trading, because we're putting ourselves under pressure, our body responds, it detects fear, and it is detecting fear, and therefore it responds automatically. Now, how do we start to control this? Well, it starts by understanding what's going on. If you understand what's going on, you can start to be committed to doing things to help you manage this. Now, the first thing to understand, and what we're talking about when we say understanding, is we're not talking about beliefs, what you believe to be true. I think as traders, we've all read Trading in the Zone. Mark Douglas has written a brilliant book. Most of us can't implement that book because we don't understand it. And when I say understand it, we don't believe it on the right level. So it's a great book. All the information's there, but it's almost a little bit not that helpful because we don't know how to apply it. And it starts with our belief system. He talks about beliefs in there, but the very thing he talks about, your belief system, is actually what's keeping you from implementing exactly what's in that book, because there's things in that book that would jar with your belief system. So what I'm going to talk about now is what's going on, but we need to address your beliefs about this. So if you still have the belief that you can learn your way out of this situation, you will forever stay stuck in that learning mode and never actually work on this because you don't believe this. Now, I'm telling you what is actually going on, but the work for you to do is to really, in some quiet time alone, assess what your real beliefs are, because if you don't actually accept this information and believe it, your brain will override you and do other things. That is also what we are dealing with here, is beliefs. And these beliefs are at different layers, and you're going to deal with them at every level of solving this problem. But just at the starting point, it's your 100% belief in this is the problem. Now, fear and anxiety get triggered when you trade. For two reasons. One is it is a pressurized event, because one, you've got money on the line, you want to make money, and you've got money on the line, you could lose money. Now, this is actually the most minor of problems for us, because most of us actually very quickly start to accept the monetary loss. We can accept that very easily. What we can't accept is that when a trade doesn't work, it's a hit to our ego. It's that we were wrong. That is, the fear of being wrong is so much higher than the fear of losing money. The fear of being wrong, the fear that this won't work for you, the fear that this will be another trade that will add to your losses, and then you could spiral into another blown account. The fear of that is so subconscious, and it triggers it at an ego level, but it is so prevalent, and it is the biggest trigger. It's not your problem. We're going to talk about the problem. The problem is your response to this, but the trigger is fear and anxiety. And a lot of people cannot accept or admit that they have that fear in the first place. Even to admit that triggers that again, because now you've got to admit that I've been wrong about everything else I've been doing. I've been wrong about spending all this time learning when I should have been doing this. Can you start to see how this is layer upon layer upon layer that we've got to work through? And all of it becomes very painful, becomes very triggering. When we talk about it's painful, it's because it triggers pain, and pain triggers fear. So it's a cycle that can be very, very difficult to break through. And this is why there's no quick solution, there's no overnight solution. But it starts with listening to this information and accepting it and believing it. Because if you don't start working on these beliefs, and start having these as your beliefs, you can't start making the changes. Now, fear and anxiety. Let's not talk about fear. Let's talk about anxiety, because anxiety is it's a cousin of fear. It's like fear, but anxiety is a far more prevalent problem for us as very advanced modern humans, because we very rarely have what we call fear. We don't have bears coming at us. We don't have snakes coming at us. We don't generally have wildfires coming at us. Now, when those things happen, yes, you're going to experience fear, like real fear. But what we have is anxiety. Now, anxiety is a watered down fear. And we have it in this modern world because we don't actually have outright fears that we can say, well, that was very normal to respond like that because there was a bear. That's normal, and we can accept that and go, oh, yeah, that I had fear. Because we have anxiety, it's hidden. It's like we shouldn't be reacting like this because it's not that bad. But anxiety triggers the same fear response, just far more subtly, but it's triggering the same response. And we have anxiety about not making this trade. We have anxiety about not being good enough to be a trader. We have anxiety about being wrong on this trade. We have anxiety about, oh, I told everyone I'm so good at trading and I've got nothing to show for it. This is all anxiety. We have anxiety about a lot of things in our lives, and it triggers the same system, fight or flight. And I'm going to now talk about what we do that actually makes trading so difficult for us when this anxiety triggers. But we're going to reframe this from fear to anxiety, because I think we understand anxiety better. It's a lower level, and it is fear, but I'm not going to call it fear because it makes no sense to us that we have fear unless there's real imminent danger. But our body can't really tell the difference, because the brain that's doing this is still a caveman brain. It's not that evolved. And remember, your brain that can differentiate between, tell the difference between fear and anxiety and think through all these things in the moment isn't working. It's got no blood supply. Well, it does, obviously, because it's not, dying, but it's got reduced blood supply. So it can't work as well as it should. So you're reliant on this little ancient brain that I call the lizard brain. So that is at a biological level what is going on. Now let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety is triggered for us as modern humans when there is uncertainty. And uncertainty, this is very important for you to believe as a trader. This gets to another belief system that Mark Douglas talks about, but most traders struggle to get to this level of total belief about this. But trading in the moment is always uncertain. There's uncertainty about every trade. Every trade could be a winner or a loser. You don't know. Over 100 trades, yes, you've got a system, you've back tested it. There's probability. There's a win rate. There's expected outcomes. But in any given trade, you don't know if it will be a winner or a loser, because anything can happen. Now, anything can happen is uncertainty. Now, whether you have done all the work to believe on any trade that anything can happen is a different conversation. That's something else you need to go on. And if you haven't done that, you're going to struggle to believe that there is this uncertainty all the time, and you're going to struggle to believe that that is triggering your anxiety, and you're going to struggle to believe that that is triggering your emotional response. So it does kind of step back. But we're not going to talk about your beliefs around probability of trading at the moment. We're talking about uncertainty. Uncertainty exists on every single trade. It is inherent to trading. Inherent means that it is a part of trading. Uncertainty is a part of trading. And unfortunately for us as modern humans, uncertainty is the biggest driver for anxiety. And if you look at other areas of your life, you're not, anytime you're stepping out of a space, a situation that you know the outcome, you know how it works. Think about social situations. When you're going somewhere, you know everybody, you know it. When you're going somewhere and you don't know many people, it's the uncertainty of that situation. Who will talk to me? Who won't talk to me? Will they think? What will they think about me? The uncertainty it triggers anxiety. It's in every aspect of our lives. Uncertainty triggers anxiety. Now, how much anxiety it triggers depends on you again, but it does trigger anxiety and uncertainty in trading. It is there, and it will trigger your anxiety. Now, what do we do when we're anxious? This is the response when we're anxious. Now, remember, you've got this biological brain kicking off. It's going into fight or flight mode. Now, here's our response that is very much not helpful in this situation. But when we have anxiety, it's uncertainty. You can also call that we feel internally, we feel out of control. And we are. But we feel it. Internally, we feel out of control because we're in an uncertain situation, which means we have no control. How we try and deal with that as humans is to try and control the external world. So you might see this. I saw somebody else, I can't give myself credit for this. I saw a neuroscientist talk about it in these words, but I love this description of it. She talked about the overs. We overthink, we overwork, we overdo everything, we try and control, we over control everything around us because we're trying to manage that internal anxiety, that internal feeling of being out of control. We deal with that by trying to control the environment around us. So all the overs, overthinking, overworking, overdoing it, over working, everything. And think about trading. We overanalyze, we overtrade, we overdo everything. And overtrading leads to revenge trading because we've got this emotional powerhouse fight or flight also going on. This is what's happening. So now that you know what's happening, how can we start to manage it? Because you can't manage something if you don't know what's happening. I've explained to you now what is happening. So the first step for you is to start working on your beliefs of this, because you have to start taking action. You have to believe what I've told you. And there's going to be lots of reasons that you don't want to believe this, because some of it is going to be painful, maybe at a subconscious level, that you've got to admit that you've been spending hours and hours doing the wrong work. There's just so many layers to this, but it's the belief system that this is what's actually happening. Now, we've got the external world of trading that we're trying to control. We've got our internal world that we can't control because we feel out of control. We've got to deal with both of them. So let's look at the solutions here. The number one, I'm not going to get too into this. I'll probably do another webinar going really deep into this. But when you are controlling your external environment as a response, trying to control trading is impossible. You cannot control the trade, but you are trying to. The only thing you can control on a trade is getting in, setting your stop loss, and getting out at your target. That's it. When you are hovering over your trade and you're making intra-trade decisions, so getting scared that it might hit my stop loss, I'm going to move my stop loss, or getting scared that my little bit of profit is going to be wiped out. You're trying to control the trade, trying to like move your break even up to not lose anything, usually get tipped out. But you're trying to control a trade that you cannot control. You can only control three things. That's it. Getting in, setting your stop loss, and getting out at the right place. Everything else is just you trying to control something so that you can feel better on the inside, because internally you have anxiety and you're out of control. So you need to, with your logical brain, so you can't do this while you're in the middle of training because it's not working, but you need to do work on learning and accepting and believing what you can control and what you can't control. Everything you're doing, trying to control the trade, is not in your control. There's only those actions that are in your control, and then how you behave. The only thing you have control over is how you behave. Now, we're actually talking about a situation where you're feeling very out of control, but I'm telling you that you can have control over your behavior. You can have control over that internal anxiety, but it's going to take a lot of work. The first is this belief system we've just come across. If you're feeling like this is jarring, we've hit a nerve. We've hit your belief system. That's the same as hitting a nerve. It affects you, it triggers you. Okay? Those belief systems have to be dealt with. But when you deal with them, you will realize that the only thing you can actually control is yourself. Now, at the moment, you have no control over yourself because you've never tried. You've never done the work to do it. You can't have control over yourself overnight. You can't control this by forcing it. You can't control this by making yourself promises, by promising discipline, by promising that's the last time. You can't force this. You can't force yourself to control yourself. But you can design it, and you can start working on these things. It is working through belief systems, little nerves that get hit and affect you and trigger you. But this work can be done, but it needs your attention, it needs your intention, it needs you to actually actively work day in and day out at this, because over 3 months you can make behavioral changes. You can't do this overnight, but you can't do this if you never start, and you absolutely will never start if you don't start having some of these realities as your belief, within your belief system. If you're still fighting this, it's impossible to even start. Okay, so we've talked about anxiety, fear, the fight or flight system that's going on. We've talked about what you're trying to control. You actually are out of control internally, so you're trying to control the external. That's what's going on. We haven't talked about the solutions yet. We've just talked about what's going on, and what's stopping you from actually finding solutions is your beliefs around some of these things. A lot of people in this trading space continue to tell you that it's about your edge. It's about your edge and your strategy. And as long as those are your beliefs, you will not do the work. You will not ever do this work. You will not ever solve this. So that's what you need to work. You need to go away and be honest with yourself. What are your beliefs? What are you willing to do? What is going on with you? That's the work. Now, how do we solve this? I'm going to give you 3 tools today, but before I do, the number one solution to this is coaching, because working with someone else allows you to have a mirror held up to you and to observe these things, beliefs that you might not realize you have, things that are standing in your way of solving all of this, because you need to solve this at a deep level, deep psychological level of beliefs that exist within you. It's bespoke to you. That means it's very specific to you. What beliefs I have, and I've broken through most of my beliefs, I still find deep held beliefs that are actually stopping me from being even better. So I keep you can never stop breaking these down. If you want to continually, master yourself, because my core value is about self-mastery. We need to become masters of ourselves. And that job never ends. It's beautiful, because you can start to go, what's my infinite potential? and I can achieve that when I have self-mastery. And there's levels and levels and levels, and it's a beautiful process, but it's very difficult to do it by yourself. You can do it. I'm going to give you some tools to start using today, because coaching isn't right for everyone. You might not be interested. It might be too scary to do, but it works because talking to someone else, all it does is hold up a mirror. It's for someone else that's not too involved in you, doesn't know you too well, that can say, well, you're saying X, Y, Z, but what I'm seeing you doing is something different. It doesn't jar. What you're saying versus what evidence you're showing me that you're doing isn't the same. And then you can go, why? And you can start questioning that. But if you don't see that, if someone doesn't give you that feedback, our brains will make us believe certain things. The reality we see is only the reality our internal lives allow us to see. And so breaking these down does require having someone else work with you. So you can also do this through reading books. And if you're a very aware person, you like to read books and really analyze yourself, you absolutely can do this. It's just a bit slower. It's going to be a slower process. But just starting is the first step. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some tools. These are tools these are not the solutions, but these are going to allow you to start having more control while you trade, and you're going to be able to start doing this work, working through this, start your 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month process, 2-year process. I don't know what it's going to be because I don't know what choices you're going to make. But these are tools you can implement in your trading today, and it's going to help you to manage what's going on. And I'm going to explain to you why they work. The very first tool you can implement today is awareness. And if you want to set a buzzer on your desk or something, but you have to constantly, while you are in trading mode, be aware of your feelings, because it's these internal feelings that trigger behavior. It triggers the control. It triggers the fight or flight. And if you can start becoming aware of those triggers before the behavior and the automatic response kick in, you've got a fighting chance. So what you can do when you become aware of these feelings, you can get up and do a fast 90-second walk around your house. Anything active helps to regulate these feelings. You can then come back and you can journal, you can meditate, you can do things to try and keep these feelings under control so that you stay in control. And at the start, you might have to do this many times during your trading. You might have to ring that buzzer and check in. It becomes more automatic over time. If you do this every day, you're gonna struggle at first, and perhaps you do a couple of awareness check-ins and then you lose control. But at least you did 2. Tomorrow do 3. Then work towards being in awareness state throughout your session. Okay, it's a process, but awareness is such a powerful tool because it can stop everything else. It can just catch that trigger in its moment. Awareness is the number one thing to practice. Think of awareness as a muscle, and you need to work this muscle. Okay, you can't go to the gym and build biceps with one session. You need to work that muscle, grow that muscle. Awareness is the same. It's a muscle, and you need to practice it. And eventually, I'm quite advanced at this. I've been practicing this for a long time. I'm aware of my feelings constantly. I don't have to, it's almost like instinctive. I don't have to put much effort into it. Now, when I'm not trading, I obviously am far more relaxed. So sometimes those feelings can get a little bit out of control. Maybe I'm irrational about, overly frustrated about something. And then I'll be like, oh, actually, I'm feeling like that. I very quickly check in and go, actually, I'm feeling like that. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't have feelings. It just means that you can quickly, with your logical brain, go, actually, I'm feeling like that because that happened. And you can just rationalize it. Doesn't mean that sometimes you don't want to just, experience a feeling. That's fine. But at trading, you cannot experience a feeling. You cannot do it at trading. So you can practice this muscle throughout your life, day in and day out, hour in, hour out. And when you're not trading, you can be a bit more relaxed about it and just be aware, but you don't have to control anything. When you're trading, you have to control that inner world. Okay, awareness. The second thing is safety. Now, what's happening? This anxiety triggers because of uncertainty. At a very basic level, you feel unsafe. You're feeling unsafe internally. And that anxiety can then grow, trigger your fight or flight response. And then between that and trying to control the external environment, you're out of control. Safety, making your inner world feel safe. You can also call it your inner child. That is a phrase that is often used for this kind of work. Making that feel safe goes a long way. It can help you to also then work on the awareness. Safety, making yourself feel safe. How do we make ourselves feel safe? By making the situation feel known. So that's why we have routines. Come in, always have the same routine. Sit down at your desk. What do you do first? I meditate. I journal. I record my sleep. I have a whole routine. I never change it. Then I look at my higher time frame context. I get into it. But my nervous system is familiar with this. And so as I get into trading, it's feeling safe. It's a familiar space. So by the time I've done the things I can control, entry, exit, stop loss, set them, I'm still feeling safe and I can walk away and leave that trade to run. Now, my trades run for a few hours to a couple of days, so I can really just walk away and check them per my schedule. Now, if you're trading on a lower time frame, even if it's 2 minutes, you need 2 minutes at least for the next candle. Do something else. Read a book. I don't know what you're going to do, but try to, the routine and the activity should start to feel safe. And then when the safety disappears, so now you're into the unknown, the uncertainty, you need to remove yourself. These are very powerful things that can really, really help you control what is going on. They're not going to stop everything because you need to do the proper inner work, but these are powerful, powerful tools. The last one I'm going to tell you about is to use checklists. Checklist your rules. If you're on a 2 minute or something very fast, try to do as much of the checklist, anticipating what will happen, and then when it happens, you're ready to enter. If you're on a slower time frame, you've got more time to do this. But use checklists and physically tick them off. What does this do? Doing this checklist engages your brain, your cortex here, your prefrontal brain, where all the thinking happens. It engages it, so it keeps blood there. Engaging this brain allows you to stay engaged on a logical level with your rules, and it reduces the ability for this amygdala, this fight or flight response, to just take over. It gives you a fighting chance. These are the three tools you must start implementing. These are the tools that give you a chance to trade with more clarity, with more focus, with more thinking brain, and not get so out of control and be dominated by your emotions, your nervous system, and this fight or flight response that then leads to behavior that is very damaging to your trading. And while this cycle continues, you will not become profitable. You will not become consistent. Now you've got a chance. 95% of people never understand this, they never believe this, and they never take action. They never work on this part of themselves. and they never solve it, and they fail. Guys, thanks for joining. I really appreciate you. Reach out if you have any questions at all. Implement what we've gone through, and most importantly, turn up next week. We're going to do even more work on this. There's so much about this, but once you start, it really makes a huge difference to your trading, and it is the solution. So I'm Marisa. This is the Traders Journal, and I'll see you next week.